Quality Black Metal Reviews. I'm joined today by Evan Hopper, who is the creator behind the black metal solo project Quell. Now, we've just had a pretty cool chat before this video even started, but he's an awesome lad creating some devastating black metal under his project with avant-garde touches. It's quite, I'd say, conceptual, cathartic black metal. If you're not familiar with it, hopefully you will be after this interview. But Evan, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I've been looking forward to talking to you because we do chat now and then on the internet, so it's really nice to finally catch up with you, that's for sure.
Likewise, of course.
How are you enjoying being back in the US? I know you've come back for a visit.
It's fine. I mean, it's a bit surreal. I've been out in Europe for like 2 years now, so yeah, surreal is the best word for it. And you get kind of start longing after the things that are like what you're familiar with, but then you also become accustomed to the things that you're like living around all the time. So yeah, it's strange. I mean, right now I'm actually sitting in my old room when I was a child, and
that
like
is so weird. Yeah.
This is like my mom has come through and painted all the walls. This used to be like covered in all sorts of satanic imagery and like sigils and like spells, and there was graffiti and all kinds of posters hanging all over the wall. And now, as you can see, it's become just another room in my parents' house.
What was Mum thinking painting over all that, honestly?
I think she saved some of my artwork, but you know, she wanted to get all the filth. As soon as I moved out of the house, she was like, done painting this whole thing.
Fair enough. Hey, let's start at the beginning, Evan, because you haven't been around for too long with your band Quell, but I do know that you have played in a lot of bands in California and other areas of the States. So I do want to ask, how did this project come about for you? What was the inspiration to bring this project together? And the bands that you played in previously, were they of the same genre, or just give us a little bit of a background?
Sure. I mean, I guess it all started here in Virginia. A buddy of mine, Tom and myself, we started our first band, Navanoon, which was kind of just like, well, it's 15-year-old kids like trying to make death metal music. So, I mean, it wasn't really that great by any means, but it was like really influenced by bands like Amon Amarth, Cannibal Corpse, and the like. You know, it was more of a death metal band, I would say, at the time. Through that band, I joined a band called Ecliptic that we started like getting. It was the guy in that band, this guy Marcus, that really like turned me on to all sorts of black metal. I hadn't really gotten too much into black metal at the time, and his band was more of a black metal band in the way that, like, I don't know, like the way that Opeth is a death metal band. Like they dabbled a lot in black metal, but they also had like some progressive like kind of stuff to them.
Yeah.
So that band like was what really got me doing more and more black metal, and we did some interesting shows. We got to play for like nice opening acts. Like we opened for Enslaved one time, and you know, when you're like 17 years old, 18 years old, like that was just the craziest thing in the world.
That's
to
huge.
Do something like that. Yeah. And then after like a year or two stint with them, I ended up moving out to California to be with my buddy Tom again. He had joined a black metal band out there in California called, it's a weird story, but he was already friends with the guy who had started this band. This guy had moved out to LA prior to him getting out there. And so they had this black metal band called Mysterion. And they last minute lost a guitar player, asked me if I would come out to California. So I flew out to California with just my guitar and stuff like this, and learned the songs in like 2 weeks. And we went on tour with this band from the Bay Area of California called Nilotep. And we did, I don't know, I think we did like 16 or 17 different shows, but it spanned like from Colorado to Las Vegas, all through California, up into Oregon, and into Washington State. And it was just a crazy, you know, it was a crazy experience. Again, at that time, I think I was like 19, so
wow.
I'm like still like super young. And I stayed in California for a while, and joined another death metal project called Depths of Chaos. That didn't work out. There was I was having some problems in my life, and at the time, mainly. Like I was fucking around with drugs and alcohol like way too much. Ended up kind of just more or less getting kicked out of the band. It wasn't anything bad, but it was just it was a bad time for me, bad time for them. Having me in that band. They weren't really willing to like work with me or anything like that at the time. Started another project, and then after that, this leads up to Quell. After that, last project was called Left for Dead. I just did like little things here and there. I would drum for like one band, or I would play guitar in another, but nothing really stuck. And I couldn't get like bands together. And one of the things that like really helped me always in life is music. I've always been a creative person, and I mean, the amount of stuff that I've played in my bedroom compared to like the amount of stuff I actually recorded is kind of stupid and ridiculous. But I find music like super cathartic, and I just always write, and I always have to write. It's just something I have to do. But I don't know. I think like there's a lot of gray area in between. But I don't want to make your podcast a 3-hour long podcast. So like I end up not playing music for like a year. I just don't touch my guitar. I don't do anything. And it's around the same time that all this is happening. I'm sort of quote unquote like getting my life together. I do a trip to Europe, just backpacking through Europe by myself, and I start like just finding like a little bit of like not direction necessarily, but like just some drive to like do some more stuff, and kind of leave the stuff that I've been doing behind and go in another direction. And this was the beginning of Quell, because I still had like, up to this point, I have like some guest spots on some like recordings. There's like live footage of me, but there's, out of all the stuff that I've told you, there's like no like physical media that like I'm a part of, like something that like, that has my name on it that I like did like it from start to finish. And it was just kind of like a bucket list thing for me. So I was like, okay, well, I made a decision that I was going to attempt to move to Europe. And I was like, well, before I do that, like, I want to do this Quell thing, just do a 4-song EP. So that's when I did this one here. And I did everything, the photos, like the all the lyrics, everything, the whole shebang. And I didn't really think much of it after that. And then after getting to Sweden, a buddy that I knew out there who works in the recording world, he's a mutual friend of everyone that I know out there, and so he had caught wind of me coming out, and he expressed some interest in working with me if I ever decided to do like another Quell. And that's pretty much like the empathy of Turning the Sun to Stone, was me getting out there and then him showing some interest. So he played a big role in the sound, and also just kind of getting me excited to continue doing it. And I guess after this one, now it's sort of a thing. So I'm doing another one right now. I'm recording more stuff right now. I didn't really think of it at the time that it was going to be anything other than just like a little project, just something I could give out to some friends and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But,
yeah, you're definitely getting some traction, that's for sure, and we'll talk about that soon. But it's good news to know that you're sticking with it and you're writing some more material. Let's talk about your first EP, which is your self-titled EP. Yep. I mean, this is such a fucking awesome EP. I love it. I listen to it quite regularly, actually. It's for me, it's quite conceptual. I love the themes around the summoning of the darkness to try and empower yourself, I suppose. I want to ask, because it's always a hot topic within black metal, the whole occultist satanic theme. For me, it can be used the right way, or it can be just used gimmickly. I feel like when I listen to your music, because it is so ritualistic, there's such a mystique to it. It's also very, very aggressive, but there's just some conviction and authenticity in the way you hurl these lyrics, particularly in this release. I mean, I don't want to get too private. You don't have to go into too much detail, but I'm just wondering, is this a cultist concept, a true belief for you, or is it a means to amplify your sound?
Yeah, I suppose it is like kind of just how I live my life. I mean, I even on my hands there, I have energy flows where attention goes. So I'm a very spiritual person. I mean, not religious by any means, but spiritual. Like the only reason I'm not religious is because I've already, in my humble opinion, like religion is just kind of like low-hanging fruit. Like I think there's more beyond religion. I think it's like a limiting place to hang your hat, you know, for lack of a better term, you know. So names like Satan and Jesus and God and all these kind of things. I believe in forces, you know, of course, you know. I don't think you can be someone who's you know, had some like experiences in life and not see, like, you know, how horrible things can be, and also how beautiful things can be, and how that maybe has something else behind it, you know. The album, the self-titled one, it's a concept album, but the concept is that it's 3 different stories, you know, of people sort of you know, wanting something and wanting something like quickly, and not willing to put the work in. And that's something I guess I can really speak on as well, you know. I mean, that not getting something without putting in any effort, 9 times out of 10 comes with some sorts of like negative consequences as well, you know. So that was kind of an exemplified version on the EP, was like, you know, it's these different stories that worship this, you know, this non-existent goddess that I created, like the whole concept of the goddess and like the people like throughout the different things. But in that story, like it shows, you know, like with the child, it's a child that's like lost and has been abused probably, you know, or like just scared and alone, and this entity comes to it. Same with the lovers, you know. The lovers are just like trying to find like the next level of passion, so they're drawn to it. The servant, he's a serial killer. He's like satisfying his own needs, but he's also drawn to like protection of the goddess. So I think it is something. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's like
no, it's good information about the album, that's for sure.
It's yeah. I mean, as far as occultism, like, I mean, I haven't done any of that since I was like, when I was younger, you know, when I was still kind of getting into theology, or I was still getting into like witchcraft and stuff like that. But I mean, if I can be like completely candid, you know, after you've done like a lot of that kind of stuff, and after you've done like a lot of, you know, drugs and been in jail, and you've seen like people at their absolute worst, you know, occultism and things like that, they're really not that scary things anymore. And I don't really believe in them in the same way. I believe more in, personally, I believe more in like action, consequence, maybe karma, I suppose, you know.
Right.
As a driving force in like in life, I think. You know, I think that I guess that is pretty much what I'm saying is, like, if you put out negative comes back your way.
100%.
Like, and if you put out good, I think good does come your way. The problem is it just depends on like how much negative you have like within yourself that can overshadow any like positive feedback that you can get from the universe. So a lot of people that are like in bad places tend to continue to look at bad things, and that's all they see, you know. It's difficult, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So you're now living in Sweden, which is really exciting for you.
It's something.
Yeah, I can imagine. Would have been a massive culture shock going from America to Sweden, in a sense. I just wanted to ask, with your music and your songwriting, is your scenery and the environment that you're in now in some way changing the shape of how you're, you know, conjuring your music, and how, if so?
Absolutely. You know, when I wrote the self-titled, I was in California, and California has this beautiful black metal like landscape to it that it's not even like really aware of, and it is that desert. That desert is like it's bleak and it's depressing in a lot of ways. It's also magnificent and glorious in a lot of ways too. So I can hear it when I listen back to the first one. I can kind of hear where I was when I was, well, obviously I can hear where I was when I was writing the songs, but I can feel like where I was. As opposed to Turning the Sun to Stone, I feel like Turning the Sun to Stone is a much colder album, and that's majorly because like I was in Sweden writing this album. The very first couple songs was written at the very tail end of summer, going into autumn, and then the whole finalizing, and then the writing, doing the lyrics, and all that was all done, during the winter. And the landscape of Sweden, I mean, it is a thing, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like bands like Forknagar and Darkthrone and all the traditional old school stuff, even Over and all this kind of, and these guys that like really, they're super proud of their landscape, and I understand why. Like Scandinavian landscape is beautiful, it really is, and it's all inspiring. I mean, and it is cold as fuck too, so like, I mean, like when you're there, I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff, there's nothing nicer than like taking a shot of whiskey and putting on like your heavy coat, putting in like, just like a little bit of, I don't know, whatever you want to listen to, whatever black metal you want to listen to, and then just go trekking through the snow at night, like when like you just the moonlight like falling and stuff. Yeah, it's magnificent. I mean, that weather exists here in the States too, but it's completely different up there. It's just way colder, living. So this is something you'll understand too. Like, so being in Australia, you probably have like a really full sky at night. You probably see like all the stars in the world.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. That's very typical places that are have like desert landscapes. So California also has that same sort of thing. But like Sweden does not. The sky is like actually quite small because you're so high up on like, the globe, where you're at. It's like, you just kind of feel like even when you're looking up, you just kind of feel like this isolation, and it gets dark every day around like 3:00 during like the winter time, so it's definitely very inspiring, very depressing. And I think that's why the Turning the Sun to Stone ended up being the depressing album that it actually is.
It actually is, and that's why I asked the question, because I mean, the cold over there is just unimaginable to someone. Like we were just talking earlier, it's 18 degrees here, and I'm saying it's cold. Right. I mean, it's not in the house, but outside it's just cold for us at the moment. And I was talking to my friend Krista Drive from Embodied Heart, and he was saying, it's minus 30 degrees, and I just can't even begin to even imagine how I deal with that cold. I'd love to experience it just once, but your latest EP, Turning the Sun to Stone, when you said that, it's definitely a far more colder album than your previous EP. But the sophistication and the song structure, the songwriting, for me is a lot more advanced as well, and very, very cathartic and depressive, which I was sort of a little bit taken back by that, because your last one, it's like chalk and cheese. So I have to ask, what's the story behind this album? What's this album all about?
I guess, I mean, it's honestly like a story of everything about it's actually like real to my life. So it's actually more of like an open book than anything else. And that, I guess, spoiler alert, like, so in Corporeal, the opening, like, the intro riff, just like those driving like tom drums and stuff like that, and the bells. And there's a line I said, like, the heart is open, so all these songs are actually things that I've experienced and things that either I'm currently going through or have gone through in the past. And Corporeal, I guess we'll start with that one. And Corporeal is actually a song I wrote being here in Stockholm, because there's an interesting thing that happens in Sweden that doesn't happen in the States, and that is that, like, the homeless people are completely, like, unacknowledged. Whereas, like, in the States, people acknowledge you. They might be disgusted, they might say horrible things, or they might give a guy $1. It just all depends. But homeless people are acknowledged, for better or for worse, more or less. I mean, of course, there's always the people that just walks forward and doesn't want to see, like, the horribleness that's, like, existing in front of them. But I noticed it quite a lot in Stockholm, especially because I work a normal job, like, and I have to take the train to work every day. So I'm constantly going through droves and droves of people. And so, the whole concept of incorporeal is, like, incorporeal. So it's like, something that's, like, is in plain sight but can't be seen, something transparent in full sight, So that was the whole concept of that. And, like, all the horrible things I said, I think I smell so bad. People walk past me in disgust. That actually is, like, what I see ever happen, like, every single day. With like, the homeless people. Yeah, it really is. My flesh is rotting, I stand in puddles of my flesh line that's in that song. That's actually a real story. It's super fucking gross, but I'll tell the story because I know you want the dirt. So a buddy of mine, this is something I drew from an old experience, but a buddy of mine who still is a security guard was working security at a mall, and there's a homeless guy that was, like, coming in, and he was just he was far gone. I mean, just been out there for far too long without changing his clothes and stuff like that. And as this man was, like, walking through the mall, he was, like, leaving little puddles behind him when he was stepping.
Yeah.
His feet were rotting.
Oh, that's
and
heartbreaking.
That was
yeah.
So
stop.
Yeah, but so I mean, that's song number one, and that's just to get people's attention, I guess, and people need to know that kind of stuff happens. It's real deal stuff. Since you're grossed out, I won't tell you the rest of that story.
No. No, tell me. I'm not grossed out. It's just, like, I'm just thinking of that we can let people get to that state, and it's just heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Not grossed out.
He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just trying to get some food and stuff, but obviously he was stinking so bad that, like, he was offensive to the rest of the people, right? So my buddy calls the ambulance. The ambulance shows up, and they're like, they try to take the boots off, and his, like, skin's coming with it. So the guy got amputated. Like, that's how far gone,
That's horrible. Yeah.
That's pretty horrible. So that's the story of Incorporeal,
Holy shit, I won't listen to that song the same ever again.
like the singing part too. Like, so here I am alone and bleak, a living ghost, cannot sleep, reduced to rotting meat. That's what it is.
Makes sense.
It's a story of a person that used to be somebody. And that's going to be the whole theme of the whole thing. So turning the sun to stone. Sun is actually also, like, double entendre. It's like child, so turning the child to stone. So it's, like, all these stories of, like, things that are, like, people that were maybe one point in time, everything was going great for them, and something happened, and this all happened. So the next song, Abyssal Thirst, that song is very near and dear to my heart. It's about, like, addiction and stuff like that. So it's about living a toxic lifestyle, and it more or less is consuming you. Something that I'll always deal with, to one extent or another. I mean, it's not bad as it was, like, when it came to, like, narcotic drugs and stuff, but anything, I'm always going to have an addictive personality. And I know a lot of people who have addictive personalities, and see what that does. And that's what it is. So abyssal, it just means like, just drowning, something you just can't get out of. A thirst you can't, a thirst it drowns you. Yeah, a thirst it drowns you.
Yeah.
The Devoured by Flame, the riff was written in Sweden. All these riffs were written in Sweden, but the lyrics were actually written right before I moved out of California. So I was living with two of my best friends. They're a married couple, have two beautiful boys. And I was living with them for like 6 years when I was living out in California. And the woman in this situation, her family was from a place in Northern California called Paradise. And this is, it's a fitting name for what happens. But they were a part of this Quell fire. So yeah, there was like an electrical company and called PG&E. That's what they're called, Pacific Gas and Electric. And they started a huge fire. They're like the state run, like people take care of the power lines, they take care of all this kind of stuff. They started a fire by accident, and they burned down like 100,000 acres or more of California, and it destroyed this town of Paradise, like where she was like from, and like burned everything down. I mean, you guys just dealt with this in Australia, like
we did.
Yeah. Whole everything, your whole house burns down, your whole town burns down, or your livestock burns down and stuff. So the Devoured by Flame, that's actually about that fire, because we knew a guy who refused to leave because he thought he could fight it off, and just wasn't. In the Northern California, it's like all these really, really tall spruce trees, like redwood trees and stuff like that. Once they start falling down and stuff, like you're kind of trapped, So it looks like you can kind of fight off the fires for like a long time, because like, oh, it's over there burning those trees. I'll be fine here,
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, unfortunately, he lost his life as a result of that. So that song's about that. That's and then the chorus, it's like, I am the flame, but I'm not to blame. I just want to eat, and you are my meat. It's like, it's not really saying that like the person's the meat, but it's just fire needs fuel.
Yeah.
So fire is like always eating and always growing and creeping, all over like the land and stuff. So that's what that's about. Your favorite song, Erebos, is actually just this one has the least amount of story behind it, unfortunately. It's just
so typical.
I came up with these lyrics sort of in like a brainstormy way. Sometimes when I get hit a wall with writing lyrics and stuff, I just start like listening to other stuff, and like I listen to music that doesn't have lyrics, so I'll listen to some whatever I listen to. But I'll listen to something and I'll just start like trying to find patterns in the music I'm listening to and just start writing lines down. And so I came up with a couple lines in that song, and then I kind of just built around it and turned it into this song. And then when it came time, this song actually almost hit the chopping block, for better or for worse, but I fought to keep it on. So I had to like figure out something to do with it towards the end, because I couldn't figure out what to do with it at the very end of that song. It's already such a short song to begin with. So the vocals you hear at the very, very end are actually my buddy Mike Sigler, who did the mastering of this EP.
Right.
So from chaos came forth Erebos, like all those lines at the end. That's all Mike, and Mike's like a pretty good. I mean, he's great at what he does when it comes to the studio stuff, but he's also a good musician in his own right. He's had like several bands in California, but he does more. His world is like gent and screamo and emo and like slam kind of music. So it was interesting that I always like working with him, because I can kind of trust him to really give me like an outside perspective on like what he thinks my music sounds like, because that's why he's done the mastering on both of these albums, because I if I go to another guy like likes the kind of same music that I like listening to, and we're just gonna like be like, yeah, it sounds great,
yeah, that's true. You need a hard critic.
Yeah, someone who doesn't have anything invested in the same scene, so So we're almost done with you. So the Gray Death. I'm sorry. Was this too long of an
No,
answer?
not at all. Actually, I was
Okay,
going to
okay.
say, because the Grey Death is actually, because I think when I reviewed your album, I did make the comment that at the moment this is my favorite, because my favorites just continually change, and in the end they all become my favorite. But the Grey Death is definitely one of my favorites. So tell us about that one, because this one for me, there was moments in this track that were really quite unsettling, obviously very confronting, and maybe too personal for you to talk about, I'm not sure, but it was...
No worries. I have no problem talking about it. So as I've said, on Jackie's podcast, and anyone who knows me knows that like I struggled for a very long time with opiates and heroin and anything that was like a downer sort of narcotic. And so the beginning of the Gray Death is pretty much like me talking about myself, I suppose. When I was young, I used to play with my mom, blah 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 blah. So it's like showing like how not the story starts off with a child, innocence, and then throughout the story, drugs get introduced, and then there's a person that's met, and this like conniving of how this person who meets this girl in the story like can like manipulate this person who's also down on her luck and confused and everything, and how the two of them are attracted to each other, much like most people that do drugs are like attracted to each other, for whatever reason. It could be two guys or be a couple, or whatever it is. People who do drugs find like I don't know what the cliche saying is, but like you go with what you know. You know what I mean? Like you sleep in the same, dogs with fleas together kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like So I've experienced that firsthand myself. Now the end bit of this is I won't say who because I don't want to be disrespectful, but that did not happen to me. I did find a person who was close to me who had died as an overdose, but the story that's told in the Gray Death is actually a story of someone I knew who that happened to them, or they woke up and the person that they went to bed with the night before didn't wake up. Right. And so the whole story is, so the Gray Death is a slang for like a super potent form of like cocktail. It's like things like just grind up fentanyl, Dilaudid, Oxycontin, and morphine, put in a bag. That's called the Gray Death. It's like this,
right?
As a junkie, it's like the holy grail of like opiates to do, like concoctions to do. It's not very common, but it is a thing that does exist. So I use that title for that reason, because it is like sort of a plague, so the Gray Death kind of sounds like the Black Death, like the plague, and the amount of people since those days of mine, personally, that I know, like there's been at least 5 more people that have like fallen victim to fentanyl or heroin or what have you. But in the world, of course, it's thousands and thousands, that die from this. But so that's what the story is about. So the story is like kind of me interjecting like my personal experiences and my struggles with those opiates, then incorporating the death that happened, and then the very last, like the screaming, like I'm turning the sun into stone, is like, it's the juxtaposition to the beginning of the song, where at the beginning of the song started off as a kid playing with his mother.
Yeah.
And now he's like, I just got to get another shot because I got to fucking deal with the fact that my girlfriend's dead. It's horrible, but I did it on purpose, like, because I want people to, black metal should be one of two things, in my opinion. It should be scary, or it should be like thought provoking. And so I'm trying to be thought provoking right now. I'm not feeling very scary at the moment. Maybe the next one I'll be scary, but right now, like Satanism and all that kind of stuff, I've always been a big fan of the band Shining. I don't like Nicholas Carforth as a person. I think he's kind of an asshole as a person. But the band Shining, I do respect the style of like when they do like their music, the subject matter they talk about are like real things. You know, it's not Satan and like, you know, like wizards and Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. Just like painful things that like really do exist, you know. And I mean, they do it for a different reason. They want people to, you know, commit suicide and hurt themselves. I don't. I just want you know, that kind of nastiness out of myself and out there in the world for other people to see it and think about it, you know. Because it's real. It's very, very real. You know?
Very real. I knew there would be a pretty intense story behind that track. You can feel it all the way through. The Italian artist Fenice Nera, he guested on that track as well.
Yeah, so his name is Luca Gandanetti. He's a buddy of mine from Parma, Italy. He's been in the one-man metal scene for a really long time. Very, very obscure. So, I mean, there are people that know about him, but he's probably not like hitting many people's radars, unfortunately. But he had a project for a long time called Fearbringer. And it was just all him doing just black metal music. And I mean, the guy slays. I mean, I really love the stuff that he does. And he's friends with some guys that I know out there in Italy also in a band called Darkened. And they did a cover of one of his songs on one of their last albums called the Abyssal Shadows. And it was like, he sounds to me like, whenever he does his singing stuff, he sounds to me like he's like the Italian Vortex. You know, and I'm a huge ICS Vortex fan. You know, from Dimmu Borgir to Borknagar to Arcturus, like I just love his voice and the way he just goes up and down with everything. And Luca does the same stuff. So when I was doing this album, I knew that I wanted to try and like make it a little bit less personal and like try to involve some more people involved with it. You know, as opposed to like the self-titled one where I just did everything myself. So I sent this idea out to Luca back before I even had any vocals or anything. And we just did everything through Messenger. Like I would just pick up my phone and be like, okay, so the part where you're like, can you go like that? And then I would send it to him, and then he would just, you know, that's how we like literally like recorded that part. It was really
funny.
Like, yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, the whole recording of this whole album is like, people will be really surprised, especially I think you, because you listen to it more than most, I imagine. It's one crappy Squire guitar. It's like not even like my nice guitar. It's like I just had like a crappy like $100 guitar. Every guitar track and every single song is just twice, like just recorded like all the way through 2 times. Same with the bass, and the drums are just you know, just the program drums that we got all done like through everything. And then the vocals are just two takes too, and they were all done on Halloween night in Stockholm. All of them, all the vocals this one night. Like so.
Cool. Because your vocals on that album are, I mean, it's just devastating. It's such a force. So
I could hear where they could have been better, but you know, I was really going for, despite the fact that yourself and Jackie, everyone like who's like talked about this album has like talked about how well the production is. In fact, it's like, in my opinion, it's actually kind of like the production's great, but it's such a bare bones album. You know, it's like it's not like, you know, bands like Behemoth and stuff like that. Like that one song could have anywhere between like 20 or 30 guitar tracks on it. You know, I mean, like all of these are just like 2 tracks like all the way through. So I guess it was like, I guess the jig is up. Like I didn't really work that hard on it.
Very natural then. I think what I loved most about this album too is that it's definitely, you know, depressive, and it's dark, and it's got a very depressive underlying message and tone, but it's not apathetic by any means in its sound. And I love what you've done with that, because it's still very fast, it's aggressive, it's very engulfing and heavy. And yeah, I really enjoyed that, because I'm a bit hit and miss with proper DSBM. because it can be a bit slow for me and whatnot. But yeah, I loved how you've blended these really hard topics with the metal that you've put together. It's excellent.
Well, I also I really want to, if I ever play in another band, I'll do whatever that band wants to do. But when it comes to Quell, I really wanted to make it a band or a project that encapsulates all of my talents, so it doesn't just stay super linear. So you can hear some of that on the very first one, the Untitled, but then you can listen to it more on Turning the Sun to Stone. Going from a song like Incorporeal to Devoured by Flame, and it's just two different genres altogether. And then with the singing and with the spoken word stuff, or doing that little skit, I've never done a skit before, but I thought I could do a skit, I think it can work, if it's an EP, I think it'll work if people listen to the whole story from start to finish. So I'm always trying to and this next one I'm doing, I have even crazier ideas. But I just wanted to it's a project. So at the end of the day, it's and I'm not signed, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't really know. But it gives me the freedom, at least right now, to just do whatever kind of album I want to do.
Yeah.
It'll always be metal, of course. It's just I played metal for so long. It's the only music I really play comfortably. But I have a lot of influences going back to before I even played metal, and then all the different types of music that I listen to now. So I just want to be able to have that sort of freedom, but not go too crazy with it. It doesn't need to be a Mr. Bungle album, where it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
But enough of spontaneity that it keeps it interesting, I suppose. I mean,
yeah.
And I like the EP format too. It's 20 minutes. Who doesn't have 20 minutes to listen to something?
Exactly.
So,
perfect. Good long durations. You've got great experimental touches in there. It's an absolute banger. I love it. I'm not the only one, because as you mentioned, you've been on Jackie from Into the Necrosphere show a couple of times now. He's such a good bloke. We both love your work, but you've been getting some reviews from quite a few media people, journalists, I guess. And I haven't seen or read or heard of anything at all negative, but what's your own personal feeling now that this is out there and there is a little bit of momentum happening with this? What's your personal feeling about how this has all come together and what's happening for Quell?
I mean, I'm going to keep on doing Quell regardless. I mean, it's always been a self DIY kind of project. I put up all the money for it. I do all the stuff myself. So that doesn't really change. But as far as the reviews and especially it's been a few different podcast guys that haven't interviewed me, but just do a review of my album and talk about it. And it's interesting, man. I don't really I don't get offended by anything that anyone says, and I don't necessarily feel amazing if someone says it's the best album ever. But it's just funny to listen to other people talk about my stuff. It's surreal, and I think one of the things I like the most is there's these guys that do this podcast. It's called the Terminus podcast. And they're two dudes, they cover all kinds of really obscure different types of metal and music in general. And they did an interview, did a review of the Turning the Sun to Stone. And the things it's do you drink beer, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So do you ever go to a fancy beer place and they tell you okay, we're gonna give you a beer flight? Have you ever done this?
A what, sorry?
A beer flight. Have you ever done this gimmick where you go to a really nice beer place and they put four different
paddle.
or a paddle. Yeah, all right. And then they tell you okay, when you drink this one, you're gonna get hints of this. It's like when you drink wines, this one's gonna give you hints of peppercorn and floral notes. Right. So when I listen to people talking about my music, it's kind of listening to people talking about beer that they're drinking, or it's strange, you know. It's like
Okay.
I never thought that this note would come out, but like somebody else listening to it, like they got like this sort of influence from it, you know. But it makes it really cool. It makes it. I've always thought that music is supposed to like mean something for somebody um, as an individual, you know. I mean, you know, again, like talking like earlier in the when we started, like, you know, music's always been like such a huge role to me. Like there's been times when like one album could be like in my car and like I would be like driving around like early in the morning, you know, going to school or something like that, and like I'm just listening to this album so I can just get from home to school and then like get to like my job or something like that. And then job would be over and I'm driving home and I'm listening to this album, and then the sun's setting for some reason, and as I'm driving, like it's just like this beautiful sunset, like, you know, out my window, and like all of a sudden like this album I'm listening to like means something even more than it did like, you know, this morning, you know. And then you have these moments with music like that where it's always like, yeah, some of the my favorite albums, they're not really my favorite albums because they're like the best albums. It's just like I have the memories like attached to like that sort of a thing. Yeah. So when like if I was like if I was in your shoes, like I would suck really bad because I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, like that Borknagar Epic album, like it's really good if you're standing on a mountain, like around like, you know, when the fog is rolling in or something. You know, I can't be a critic on it, you know, because I mean if I was a critic on it, okay, yeah, the guitars are dry, the drums are overproduced, blah 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 blah, you know, that kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah, but
you know, a lot of
meaning. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Music is so powerful. And I was having a chat to one of my friends about this the other day around how you can hear a track or put an album on and it can just put you right back to a certain place and a certain time. And it's a powerful
absolutely.
Thing, you know? So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I always thought about this too. Like, you know, I mean, in my weirdness of occultism and alternative like ways of thinking, I've always been like really into like Nikola Tesla, and I've always been into like the like resonant frequencies. You know, I always found it like fascinating that you could take a wine glass, you know, and you can like rub your finger, and if you do it like fast enough, like it makes a tone, right? But if you do it even like harsher and faster, like it'll break the glass, right? Because the resonant frequencies like start to like repel each other. Now, so I mean, like sound waves have like obviously sound waves have a like an effect on us, you know, on any object, you know. So the music is powerful. I mean, music can, you know, I think music can do quite a lot of different things.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what I'd do without it, to be honest. It's such a, it just has so many, I don't even know the word. I'm lost for words, but you know, I mean, it just can.
Yeah, of course. It's like when you're driving your car and like, you know, just like fucking, you're stuck in like horrible ass traffic, you know, and like you just need that like little bit of like gusto to like just start passing all these cars. And you like throw in some Cannibal Corpse or something like that, you know, and it's like, and like, you know, all of a sudden like I'm ready to drive, man. I'm gonna drive. I'm gonna run over. Like I'm just gonna start driving over cars. Like, you know, like just does that to you, you know. Or if you're with your lady, you put on some like French bossa nova, like, and then, you know, give your girl like a glass of wine, like, and all of a sudden, like, you know, you're like Gomez Adams or something like that, you know.
Absolutely. It's funny because whenever I'm really, really cranky, which is, you know, some fair bit of the time, that all really calms me down. You know, like that's my go-to to actually just go, you know. So a lot of people have that misconception that I know friends of mine, they hear what I listen to and they're like, how do you not feel angry when you hear this? I'm like, well, actually, it has the complete opposite effect. But yeah, it does, the perfect thing. Hey, I mean, you were mentioning that you're in the middle of writing new material, but I just want to talk, is this going to remain a recording project for you? Do you have plans to eventually take it to the stage when the world kind of normalizes a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just don't know when that day is going to come, but I'm already talking to people. I mean, back in Stockholm, I've made a few connections. I have a drummer in line, at least for right now, and a bass player as well. So really the band could go on as a 3-piece, but it's just like the whole situation right now.
Makes it hard.
Yeah, it's nowhere to play, and I mean, there's places to rent as far as band rooms, but the band room situation's a lot more difficult in Stockholm than it is, like, say, out in the country, or like just out in the country. You know, you have to like rent a space, and they're like these community lots, so like there's so many people that are going for it at the same time. So you're like waiting for people like give up on their leases, so you can like snag up a room that like somebody like defaulted on like a payment, you know, and then you're sharing the room with like another artist, you know, so it's like not really like your space, you know. And I mean, it's all well and good until like someone like starts changing the knobs on your like amp, or like, you know, you notice that your guitar has been picked up and moved or something like that, or someone spilled a beer over top of your fucking like drum set, you know, like then it's like this isn't really that cool, you know. Like, so at least that's been my experience in Stockholm leading up to right now. But 100% absolutely. Like if it doesn't if Quell doesn't come to be like a touring band, or at least a live band, I'm going to continue like going down like other avenues and see if I can get a gig playing with somebody else, because I personally have to play live.
I was just about to ask you that. You must miss it so much, because
I do. Yeah.
Oh, that's
and it's difficult too for me. Like I'm a front man, but I don't like using that term, but like I am a front man. I do get high off like attention and that adrenaline of people staring at you and stuff like that, and people watching, like any kind of like any second you can make you make a mistake and like be super embarrassed on stage. Like, you know, I live for that kind of stuff. I really do. And then like I also live for like when you slay it on stage, and like, you know, people cheer and like they dug what you did. Like, you know, like that's, yeah, I miss that a lot. It's been like 3 years now since I've had that experience, you know, at this point. So I mean, it's been quite a long time, but I mean, to what capacity it'll happen, I don't know. I don't know what the new world will be like after shows come back together, you know, to be like a normal thing. I don't know, you know, if I could get some sort of deal from somebody that's interested in like helping, like, you know, me like do more shows, that would be huge, you know, because otherwise, like, you know, it's going to be a project on top of a project, you know, getting a band together and then having to do all the, you know, the networking to get into certain clubs, and like, I mean, it's fine. I mean, the work is part of the deal, but it's really difficult to know what the work's going to be like.
It's good to know.
But I mean, I don't know, like I saw like wasn't Hobbs like just playing like just the other day in Sydney?
Who, sorry?
Hobbs, Angel of Death. Wasn't he just playing like just the other day?
Metal. Unfortunately, Hobbs has passed away. Unfortunately, God love him. He was a good friend of mine. But
oh really? Oh wow.
Yeah, Matt Skitz Sanders, who's a bit of a drumming legend here in Australia, he's just about to embark on a tour, Metal from the Grave tour. So we'll be doing Hobbs and Danny.
Oh, that's what it was. So they were doing like a tribute to.
Yeah. We have gigs starting up here, which is really cool, and we've just gone to general admission as well. So it's starting to happen, which is great. So there's small scale, you know, we're still under restrictions and whatnot, but it's we're in a better place than a lot of people. So we really realize how lucky we are there. This has been an absolute pleasure, Evan. I think people have been able to get a really good insight into what Quell's all about. If people haven't listened to Turning the Sun to Stone, I want to ask, why not? Go and have a listen. It's on Bandcamp. Physical copies you've got available still, Evan?
I sure do. Yeah, I have over a few handfuls of them. So if anybody wants anything, just go to the Bandcamp, quelltheband.bandcamp.com, or you can find you know, me on Spotify if you just want to like put it on your playlist and listen to it. Yeah, just look up Quell, all lowercase letters, and you know, if anybody like just wants the album, you know, I don't charge any money for, you know, the actual album. Anything that I charge on Bandcamp is just to cover the shipping costs and stuff like that. So I'm not trying to get rich off of this. You know, I want it in people's hands if they want it, but also, you know, they can go on YouTube, they can go on Spotify and just listen to it for free, you know. And as soon as like I get closer to finishing up this next thing I'm doing, I'll start leaking a few like things here and there, of course. And yeah, I mean, I just hope I hope I can continue writing some interesting music that people like listening to, you know. So.
I can't, at this point, I can't imagine you not being able to do that, I just have to say. So
we'll see.
This has been an absolute pleasure. But if there's anything else you'd like to say before we go for it. You've got the final comments if there's any.
No, not really, man. It was wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for like taking the time out of your day to do this. I hope we can talk again soon. It's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure. It's been all mine, and I will talk to you very soon.
All right. Take care. Have a wonderful day.